Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, the daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. And we are still buzzing here from yesterday's Walk on Wednesday with Mara. The phones have been off the charts. I can't keep up with it. I got phones. I'm answering different phones. More Mara. Bring Mara on for a Sunday.
Tons of fan mail coming in.
Appreciations.
For real.
Virtual flower garlands. Thank you, Mara, for sharing.
Thank you, guys.
Mara's our great assistant. If you want to join us on Zoom, you can write Mara. Or if you have questions for Questions Day, or if you just want to say, we love you, Mara, you can write Mara and us at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Also, if you're one of the others out there that we don't see, because we see all the Zoomers, but we don't see the others. If you're one of the others out there, let us know you exist. Go to your iPhone, check in with Apple Podcasts, and write a review of the show, and tell us your story, how you got here, your journey home. Everyone's got a journey home on their spiritual path, and it's unique, and it's all interesting. And so we know Kaustubha's. He was stabbed as part of his journey home. That's the highlight of your journey home, I think.
Is it?
It's usually some tragedy mixed with some wisdom. Tragedy mixes with wisdom. It comes together, right?
You're looking for a cinematic moment.
Yeah, well, we all are. I am in my storytelling. I'm always looking for a good cinematic moment. Mara in the back with Radhanath Swami, and somebody saying, "When will you become a devotee, Mara?" And then the sage walks in. You are a devotee. You are a devotee, and flashes, explosions. I am a devotee. I am a devotee. That was her moment there.
It's great because if your moment on your spiritual path coming to Bhakti isn't transformational or exciting or something like that, then you just tell Raghu about it and he will make it exciting for you.
He can spruce it up a bit.
I just change it up a bit. I'm like Bitly. You know what Bitly is? You take a long... I just make it a little succinct, a little shine it up a little. The goal, the point is the same. Life is short. God is waiting for us to surrender. You got to get rid of the ego, and you got to move forward with love. That's the story. However you want to tell that story is good.
Okay.
Even if you have to dip into some mistruths to get there. Just kidding. Okay, so we are in a great place in the Bhagavatam. We didn't
Before
even finish that.
Why don't we mention?
Let's mention some stuff.
That Sunday, back to our original time, 8 a.m. Right?
Yes.
Our original Sunday time. We'll have special guests. We're bringing him back. We said we'd bring him back. We're bringing him back. We're bringing back Eddie Stern.
Eddie Stern.
Yeah.
Ashtanga Yoga New York.
Yeah.
He's like the authority on Ashtanga Yoga in the United States, I'd say. And he's lovable and wonderful. He was on the show earlier with Mike D from the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, but when you give these guys, these front men a mic, we had 4 people on that day. Yourself, and Mike, you guys know how to dominate.
Take up
So
the conversation.
so we had to bring Eddie back because Eddie wrote this incredible book called One Simple Thing,
Yeah.
and where he analyzes yoga, asana, pranayama, etc. And he combines it with like scientific findings, and Eddie, he's always had like a really good sense of how asana and pranayama and these things, how they can be applied in life. And so he's backing it up there with, just to kind of cut through some of the mystery or so, in that book.
Because there's always a lot of people out there that are like, yeah, this doesn't work. Yeah, right. This doesn't work. And then you gotta prove to them with science that it works. So it's a good book I haven't read it. It's a good book for that.
Yeah, so I think we can discuss that book and discuss other things as well.
There are people like that who come into Bhakti with that scientific edge, and they want the science behind it. I don't believe it until the science behind it. Are you like that? I'm not like that. I'm just sort of like, they say, okay, you should take a deep inhale, retain your breath, and then take a long exhale. I'm like, okay, that's what I'll do.
I mean,
I want to know why you got to retain your breath. Why?
I don't think I'm dependent on it, but I'm interested in it,
Yeah. And that's what whenever you find these devotee scientists, like we've been talking about Richard L. Thompson for a while, they fulfill that hunger that people have for what is the science behind it. I just have faith in the culture. I feel if you find people you trust, you don't have to pick apart their brain. Why? Why do you do this, Kaustubha? Why do you sit there every morning? Why do you always have a bowl of fruit there, Kaustubha? Just trust that you're going to eat. It's good. It's a good thing. I just trust you. And the Vedic teachings are like that too. Why the rocking chair? Why do you rock? What does it? Does it help you in a way? Does it help you understand spirit from matter?
The more important question is, why are you so obsessed with me and my rocking chair? I sit in it occasionally. It's not a big deal to me. It's a big deal to you.
It is. He rocks and he thinks about life.
It represents something to you. Not to me, but to you, it's like, it's really important.
No, I think it's a good thing, but I'm just saying I don't need to know why you rock. I'm sure it's good for you, but I'm sure there's a scientific reason, like children in a swing going back and forth, and helps their mind. Anyway, great to have him on the show. Looking forward to me and Mike D's new hip hop band we're starting. Okay. And also, Madhu, our favorite kirtan dude, is doing a Patreon class today, right, Mara?
No, tomorrow at 6
Oh, I'm sorry. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., he's doing a class called Q&A about kirtan. So Patreon members can do that. And if you're not a Patreon member, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages and sign up and join our Patreon family.
Without going into details, we're getting like lots of people that are old friends of ours or different people, but that are offering to do something on Patreon. So like, I expect a lot of nice stuff's going to come up there.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about this home worship one, this kind of like how to do ritual in your home that aids kind of like, external ritual that aids internal meditation, and so
spiritual ritual, not just random rituals.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about how to do that in just the most simple and clear way, So let's you and I do something with that, Raghu.
Yeah, and Nityananda volunteered to do some Bhagavad Gita shloka study, which people want.
Mm-hmm.
We got a good thing going.
We got a good thing going, and keep developing it.
What's really happened here is we've created Guru's mercy. There's been created a culture of bhakti. It starts off as a podcast. What we have is like, it's a culture that is keeping us all engaged, and the culture is music, and the culture is food, and the culture is meditation, and the culture is clothing even, and the culture is retreats. But within that culture, there's a place for all of us sort of to fit in, and it sort of supports the main thing. And the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is this spiritual focus on our connection with divinity, which is the essence of what yoga is. But there's a culture behind it. That's what's so great about this bhakti culture. It's not just like, okay, I'm going to go to church for an hour and a half a week, and then just back to regular life. I mean, all of us here, especially the Zoomers, these crazy obsessive Zoomers, can say that bhakti is a part of almost every moment of their day. It's not like, yeah, I tell this story.
What's on your mind, Raghu?
I don't want to say it. I don't want to share it.
Okay.
Well, I first got married.
You're gonna do it.
I first got married, and my wife. I had 2 stepchildren.
Okay.
And I moved to the Hare Krishna block in Los Angeles, where all the Krishnas live.
Right.
And I used to bring the little kids, they were 4 and 5, to the morning program every morning.
Right.
And to the kirtan in the evening, and there was a restaurant there. It was so cheap, all you could eat for $6 back then, at least. Now it's like $7 or $7.50. But anyway, we go to that temple like every day, all day long. And so I remember the boy's father saying, "Hey, where do you guys live?" And I was like, "We live in like Culver City." He's like, "Oh, Watsika." He goes, "Oh, is that near that Hare Krishna temple?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's sort of close to there." He goes, "You guys
across the street means close." Then
he goes,
yeah.
"Do you guys go to that temple?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "How often would you say you take the kids to the temple?" And I didn't want to sound like a fanatic.
4 times a day.
And I was like, well, after I did the math, I was like, man, am I some type of fanatic? We go like at least 4 times a day to that temple.
We go there at 4 a.m.
And I've renamed your children. I dressed them in various robes and then put them back in their regular clothes just in time for school.
But I guess you're illustrating that there's a whole culture there to take advantage of.
Yeah, meaning it's sort of like, it's not without even trying. Like, you want to cook, you want to offer your food, right? You want to wind down your day to some kirtan, you know what I mean? Especially if you're what to speak if you're in a community. In the course of the day, your work, you're thinking, you have an altar in your house, Anyway, it becomes all engrossing, and it's sort of the goal of it. And that's what samadhi is. It's like engaging all your senses all the time. So when the turbulence of the material world comes, we have like anchors to hold on to.
All right.
What do you think about that, Kaustubha?
I'm down.
All right, let's dive into the nectar. Narayanam namaskrityam namram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. In loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyana Tamurandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sometimes I read this and I pause and I'll say it a little jazzier. I do that so I just don't get caught up in monotonous, perfunctory ritual without thought. If I could slow down. Who is praised with transcendental songs, right? The goddess of learning, of Saraswati, Godhead. If I could do it like that, it helps me think what I'm saying. Otherwise, with just a bunch of internet.
Raghu. Okay, Raghu's in and out. Hopefully he'll be back quick. So then let's go ahead and get started. We are and Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2.
I'm frozen.
You've been, oh yeah, you just came back right now.
Oh, man. Did you get my International Society for Rituals? Did that come in?
No.
Ah, I said something so good and funny.
Would you like to share that good funny
forget
thing?
it. It's over. The moment's gone.
All right. You ready to get started?
Yes, Prabhu.
So we were reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 35. In this lengthy commentary from Srila Prabhupada, we were like only halfway through it.
Yeah.
But I think we could continue with that, you know?
Let's drill in.
But, you know, maybe I could read something first or just share something first as we go back into it. Is that all right?
Prabhu, I trust you.
Okay.
Whatever you think.
So it was, this commentary is talking about how we can perceive the presence of God within through some reasoning, right? Like just thinking a little bit deeply about life,
Yeah.
you know, thinking about our own experience and slowing down and we can, he was going through some points that we can perceive God within through reasoning combined with the right attitude. If we have that right service attitude, it becomes apparent, you know, and that the fact that we perceive the body means that we are not the body because we are the seer and the body is the seen, you know, and that our ability to perceive has not come about by our own work, but it's been supplied to us, and that which we perceive and our ability to move is also supplied to us. And then he mentioned a very, very interesting fact that the very idea, the very fact that we are dissatisfied with matter is an indication that by nature that we are beyond matter, that we are spirit. And then he made a point that faith and the idea that consciousness is material cannot be established through the scientific method, right? And we spoke a little bit on that, right? You can't, if you could create consciousness in a laboratory, then you could prove it, but nobody's been able to do that. And so that's kind of where we left off. Now there's more to this commentary, but as this commentary goes on, it's going to describe that we all are living with the presence of the Paramatma within, that there's a voice within all of us that's a director, right? And it's that voice, that director, that is the link. You could say like the link between our own consciousness, our own self, and how our desire manifests in this world, you know, how that connects. Science can't exactly demonstrate how that happens, but Bhagavatam is saying that there's in Bhagavad Gita as well, it's saying that internally, the upadrashta anumantacha, that there's an overseer and a permitter, and that's the Paramatma. And so I just wanted to read something to go into this, to have this in mind as we read Prabhupada's purport. And this is from the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text number 7. You ready, Raghu?
Ready. Hit me.
Okay.
Hit me with the best shot.
That used to be reserved for Saturday's questions and answers, but it's becoming more prominent. Okay, so this is verse Jit Atmana Prashantasya Paramatma Samahitaha Shitojna Sukha Dukeshu Tatamana Pamanayo. This is a verse I never memorized, but
That's one of those ones you could sort of figure it out.
It's not hard,
because
right?
there's a lot of familiar words.
Jita Atmana. What is that, Rogan? Jita Atmana.
Jit is like the life force.
No,
the Atma and
not
Jit.
Jit. Okay, Jita. Yeah.
Jitta is like Ajit means imperishable. So the perishable.
Yeah, or it means to conquer, right? Like Ajit.
Oh yeah,
means
Ajit means cannot be conquered. Jit, to conquer the Atma.
No, not Atmana, but Jitat Manaha, the manas.
The mind.
Yeah, to conquer the mind, right?
Okay.
Prashantasya.
Can't remember.
Like
Pass.
happiness. Or
Pass.
Here is translated as tranquility.
Okay.
You know, but happiness. You could say,
Remember when I said, yeah, I can just figure it out by listening to the words? Why don't we just pass and you just tell us the meaning of it? Or else I'm going to reveal how much I was lying in that statement.
No, but you could figure it out. Paramatma, you know that.
Yes.
Paramatma is referring to the, God within the
Sitoshna
heart.
Sukha
Yeah.
Sitoshna.
Well, then it says samahita, approach completely. Shita in cold, ushna in heat, sukha, happiness, dukeshu in distress, tata, also mana in honor, and apamanayo
No honor.
in dishonor. Yeah. So the translation is for one who is, and this is the verse that's leading into the description of Ashtanga Yoga, right? Leading into this is a verse that's kind of like the introduction, or going into a chapter that's going to describe how you go into the forest. You sit quietly, you control the mind, you control the senses, control the breath, you go deep, deep, deep within, and you experience your own true nature through the process of Ashtanga Yoga. But in the Bhagavad Gita, when it describes Ashtanga Yoga, it's going to describe that where it all leads is that you connect with the Paramatma, you connect with that director in the heart that we're going to be reading about in this commentary. So here's Prabhupada's short commentary on this verse. Oh, and let me read the translation. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul, the Paramatma, is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Okay?
Great verse, huh?
It's a really great verse.
For one who's conquered the mind, what is it? For one who's
The
conquered the
super soul
mind,
is already
the super soul
reached.
is already reached.
For he has attained tranquility. So it's our disturbed mind that is between us and our connection with the Paramatma, that divine director. Okay? That voice that's there for all of us, but that voice gets distorted for many of us, for most of us, in this world.
It's what, you hear like as a sort of a catchphrase in the yoga community, the guru within, or God within. And there is God within. And sometimes you can call it a conscience. Sometimes you can call it a gut feeling. I knew it was wrong. I knew she was. I knew she was the one. I knew whatever it is. There is a gut feeling, and it's really real. But what we're trying to do in yoga and in the Bhagavad Gita, we'll teach again and again, is you got to be careful. What's your gut? What is the Paramatma? What is the super soul speaking? What is God within the heart? And what are the layers of conditioning that are saying, yeah, she is the one, or I shouldn't do that, or I should definitely do that? Because sometimes it's not God in the heart speaking. Sometimes God in the heart is speaking, but I'm tuned to a different channel. And sometimes it's my fear speaking, my anxiety speaking, my fear of failure speaking, my greed is speaking, my lust is speaking to me, and it's covering the super soul. And therefore, a lot of this Gita has to do with cleansing those things that are covering the soul. And just so I can just tune into the fine state. It's just like a radio station. There's radio stations right now in my room. I'm just not tuned. I don't know how the receiver on the right channel. And therefore I'm tuning into the static, and I'm listening to the static, and I'm thinking, yeah, there's an inner voice talking to me. So I guess we're hearing the external guru, the guru without, through the Bhagavatam, through the Bhagavad Gita. And then if it matches with that guru within, then we know we're on the same page. And then there's a person. Kaustubha is my guru, he's my teacher, he tells me, he gives me some good advice, and I get to check it with the books, with the sacred literature. And I check it with what my heart is telling me. That's the guru, the sadhu, and the shastra. Those three beautiful. The first time you heard that, wasn't that a great thing?
Makes
Guru,
such sense.
sadhu, and shastra makes so much sense, because there is a guru within. It's a real thing, but you got to be careful, because it's tricky. Because I've tricked myself and convinced myself, yeah, purchase the car, 0 down, no payments for 12 months, whatever. You got to be careful what is talking to you inside, because it could be mixed with a bunch of crazy stuff. And it's a great thing also to know, because a lot of times we go through this process of yoga, we get serious about it, and then we hear sort of guru within, and then someone like me will say, the guru within, you got to be careful. Yeah, you need a real guru. And so you go find some external guru, but you got to be careful, because that guru has to be in line with sacred literature. Anybody just can't be a guru or self-proclaimed guru, and we fall into that problem.
And the
as well.
Shastra helps us understand who is actually qualified.
And that's why, that's why the Bhagavatam, hearing the Bhagavatam, it teaches us that check and balance.
Well, you know what you're saying right now is reminding me of another verse and another commentary by Srila Prabhupada.
Please do.
Well,
Please speak.
That's this great verse from the Gita, 1858. Machchata sarvadurgani, mat prasada tarisyasi. If you become conscious, this is right towards the end. It's the building up to the very finale of the Bhagavad Gita. And, Arjuna was in such a confused state in the beginning, and then Krishna speaks the whole Gita, and then Krishna says this. He says, if you become conscious of me, you'll pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace, right? If we become conscious of God, if we become conscious of that part, what are you doing, Raghunath?
Keep going. My cord got all tangled in my chair. This only happens to me. This will never happen to Kaustubha. Don't give me that look, Mara. Look, she's dragging her hand down her face. Completely inappropriate, Mara.
Okay.
Sorry, go on.
So again, the verse, if you become conscious of me, and we can understand that in relation to what we're talking about here now, if we become conscious of that director within the heart of that Paramatma, if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life. We're going to face obstacles, but we can hear that divine guidance and pass over it all by the grace of God. And then he says, if, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, and that's those layers that you were talking about.
That's the thickest of the layer, isn't it?
Right? Yeah.
That's why you'll find that, right? In every spiritual system, you'll find like the ego. Because it's the biggest stuff, it's the biggest block keeping us from hearing that guide, that internal guide.
Yeah. So he says, if, however, you do not work in such consciousness of me, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. And then the very last sentence of that commentary on this verse, Prabhupada says, he says, no conditioned soul, right? No one with these layers of conditioning between the Paramama and themselves, right? That's the point, There's this divine director, but we have these layers of conditioning. And just like light, will shine through like colored glass, and then the light comes out colored on the other end. So it's light, but it's been changed. And so Paramatma is there within the heart of every living being, but there's the layers of our conditioning, the layers of our ego, the layers of our experience that are warping that direction that we're receiving. So he says, no conditioned soul actually knows what is to be done and what is not to be done, right? As long as you have that in between you and that divine direction, you're lost. He says, but a person who acts in Krishna consciousness is free to act. They're actually free. They're not controlled by the conditioning because everything is prompted by Krishna from within. Now, this is something that we'd have to think about as we read this commentary. He says, everything is prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual master. You could say without, right? Or, and then of course, there's also the Shastra. So yeah, we're being prompted from within, but maybe that prompting is coming through layers of conditioning. Therefore, we need to confirm it with people that are experienced in the practice and the sacred texts themselves, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra.
Kaustubha, this stuff works. It works. I had an experience 2 days ago. I was a little pissed off at somebody. Won't mention any names.
Okay.
I'm pissed off at somebody, and you can tell when you like hold a resentment, it like stays in your head, a turbo scenario. You're acting out some type of, how dare this person do that? And after the show. And how right you were. I was so right. Why didn't they see how right I was? And after the show, I couldn't help but saying, you know what? I'm hearing a voice that's not God's voice. And I immediately after the show, I wrote an apology to this person. It really works by hearing truth on a regular basis coming from Bhagavan. You start to realize what is God speaking and what are those layers speaking.
Yeah. How distorted is the message that I'm getting through those layers. Now let's go back to that text we were reading before. Okay, text 6-7.
We're like in a purport, in a purport, in a purport. It's like a Fibonacci spiral.
Okay. So now we're going back up to the layer that we were on before, which is text 6-7 from the Bhagavad Gita. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor, dishonor are all the same, right? It's connects to what we just read, all the obstacles in life. One minute we're being honored, the next we're being dishonored.
Yeah.
You know, if we've conquered the mind, if we've cleared out those layers in between, we're connecting with the Paramam, and all our direction is clear and valid, you know, and beneficial. So Prabhupada writes, actually, every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. All right? We're meant to have that divine guidance at every moment. When the mind is misled by the external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in material activities. Therefore, as soon as one's mind is controlled through one of the yoga systems, one should be considered to have already reached the destination. One has to abide by superior dictation. When one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. The mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of the Paramatma, or the Supersoul, because this transcendental position is at once achieved by one who is in Krishna consciousness. The devotee of the Lord is unaffected by the dualities of material existence, namely distress and happiness, cold and heat, etc. This state is practical samadhi, or absorption in the Supreme. So the practice of bhakti yoga can be seen as removing those layers of conditioning, false sense of identity, false conceptions of what will make me happy and what won't make me happy, step by step, you know, through our regular hearing and contemplation, through our regular meditation, you know, chanting on mantras particularly, that these layers of conditioning we can be purified of them and feel that dictation of God in the heart.
You know, the layers of conditioning is making for a reckless drive down the road, just like back and forth, smashing into to rails, or like a bowling ball. If you're not good at bowling, and sometimes in the bowling ball, when you have little kids, you put things in the gutters, the bumpers, so that it can't go in the gutter. But basically, the bowling ball is going all over the place. We need that. Our sadhana bhakti is a way. Okay, listen, pull yourself in, stay on track. And it's because we are so reckless in behavior, so reckless in our thoughts. Like I was saying, I was angry and resentful. That's reckless in our thoughts. Mm-hmm. We tend to think, okay, I got to stop drinking alcohol. Yeah, okay, I got that. And sometimes that's a big breakthrough. Like Mara was sharing in her story, like that was a big breakthrough. Yeah, what am I doing? It's not going good with my yoga practice. So sometimes we need to hear the obvious ones, because culture promotes the obvious ones. You know, it's like,
yes,
it's glorifying going out and having a good time, or going out and having partying or whatever. So the obvious ones, they need to be pruned down, but then there's like these subtle ones that we're dealing with. Like, that is a bad thought. That thought is not a good thought. You shouldn't gossip like that. You shouldn't speak ill of people like that. You shouldn't hate yourself. You're actually quite valuable. You know, you shouldn't be so attached to your beauty or your hair, or your lack of hair. You shouldn't let that upset you. And so sadhana bhakti is like, with these either aphorisms or spiritual practices, it's sort of like honing us to be like what the soul is naturally, and instead of going so off track that when the super soul, because if I'm intoxicated, I'm not going to hear the super soul, you know. So it's keeping us almost through a discipline of being on track until those habits just come out naturally. And then someone who's brand new to it, but with bad habits, they're confined to sort of like a restriction. But after a while, they become very comfortable there. Mm-hmm. And that restriction is joy. And to think about going back to those old habits that you used to do 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 5 years ago, it's like, what was I thinking? That is the classic, what was I thinking? That's a good tattoo. What was I thinking? So yeah, this is when you were speaking, I was thinking, this is why we have sadhana bhakti. Because we're out of control, and it's getting back us back on practice.
Right.
Do you want to explain sadhana bhakti just for people who don't know what it is?
Well, sadhana, there are two levels of two practices of bhakti. One is the beginning level, and one is the level of of advancement. But basically, sadhana bhakti means that we practice engaging the senses in bhakti, in service. And so, as we mentioned before, bhakti is a practice where the beginning and the end are the same. The things that you do in the beginning are the same things you do at the end, but it's just a level of the ripeness of it. You're ripening it as it goes. So like, we practice hearing, we practice chanting. We may not feel the complete power of it, the complete connection of it, the complete bliss of it, but we practice it. All right. And then gradually it ripens, into where when we chant Krishna's name, now we do it, we regulate it. As you're saying, you make a rule, okay, I'm going to chant this much every day. That's a stricture, say, in the practice of bhakti and of sadhana bhakti. But at a certain point, you no longer need that stricture because you're doing it out of bliss, and that's a higher level of practice, or that's the perfection of it, really. Okay, so why don't we pick up where we left off yesterday?
Okay, Prabhu.
Yesterday, the last point that was covered in this commentary, again, of Srimad Bhagavatam 2.235, was Prabhupada made the point that the idea that consciousness is material, that our awareness, our consciousness, is merely a mixture of material ingredients, is a chemical process, as opposed to the idea that there is an eternal conscious soul, right? That and that's who we are eternally. That idea that our consciousness has developed through a blend of material ingredients, he says that cannot be established scientifically. So therefore, until someone can establish that scientifically, we would have to say that it is merely faith, right? Yeah. It's merely faith. There's no actual science that can prove that. And it's just Prabhupada's way. He's saying they'll never be able to prove it, because the fact is, you see, if you assume that everything that is true exists within the realm of our scientific experimentation, then you begin to make more assumptions based on that. But the fact is if that what do you call it, preposition is wrong? What do you call that when you put something forward first?
Presupposition.
Yeah, there's another word that's
Mara. Mara's like duh. Nothing, Mara. Come on.
I don't know.
It's
you
okay.
were the spelling bee queen of your private school, I thought.
People are throwing stuff up. Presumption. Yeah,
presumption. Presupposition, I think, might work.
I'm still thinking of another. I think that'll work, but there was another word.
Preposition. Okay, baby's saying preposition. She's smart.
Yeah. But in any case, if we base it on that, we're going to so many things out. But if we put that forward first, and then base everything on that, then everything's incorrect if what we put forward first is incorrect. And so that's where, there's that joke about, like, there's a guy he's out at night, and you come home and you see your neighbor across the street, and they're down on the ground, like, searching for something. And then, they're under the night, the street lamp. And you come over and you say, hey, what's going on? You lost something? You say, I lost the keys to my house. Oh, you lost them over here? No, I didn't lose them over here. I lost them over there. Well, why are you looking over here? Well, because there's more light over here, right? So if we assume that all truth about existence fits under the street lamp of what we can perceive through our senses, what we can perceive through our microscopes and so on. Well, that's a big, I still haven't come up with the word, but like that, if you're going to start with that assumption, well, you've already eliminated so much of what might be true, So if we cannot perceive God with the material senses, you're going to deny God's existence because there's no material proof. But we're saying there's the proof exists outside that, and it can actually be perceived, but it won't be through your microscope.
We got a limited microscope.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's move on. Then the next point he makes is that we can experience God within in the form of intelligence. And here's what Prabhupada's commentary. He says, now we come to the point that the things which are seen by a little use of intelligence cannot be animate unless we accept someone as the user of or director of the intelligence. Intelligence gives one direction, like some higher authority, and the living being cannot see or move or eat or do anything without the use of intelligence. When one fails to take advantage of intelligence, he becomes a deranged man. And so a living being is dependent on intelligence or the direction of a superior being. Such intelligence is all-pervading. Every living being has his intelligence, and this intelligence, being the direction of some higher authority, is just like a father giving direction to his son. The higher authority who is present and residing within every individual living being is the super self. So he's saying there's a director, and we understand that through intelligence. You know, I always think of like there's these, they show these nature films, and you get these little turtles getting hatched on the beach.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the bird comes and picks them off.
It's so sad, right?
It's sad.
But that turtle breaks out of the shell.
First of all, they're buried.
Okay, they're buried, but then the day comes, they break out of the shell, and then they start running. They're running for the water. Now this turtle has not had any education, right? There's nobody sat down and broken out a blackboard. And
okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to start moving around, flapping your little flippers.
And as soon as you come out, there's this danger bird, right? The bird could come and get you. So
you got to watch out for the birds.
So here's the strategy. The second you bust out of that egg, you start running for the ocean. That's where you say,
keep your head low, keep your head in, but flip fast. There's no coach.
But there's no coach.
The mother leaves. The mother left him there and goes back in the water.
Yeah. So they're on their own, but they have the message, run for the water, right? Make a run for it. Now, where's that message coming from? Even if you said, well, it can sense danger. Well, how can it sense danger? It hasn't been educated to what danger is. It hasn't been educated that there's safety within the water. It hasn't been educated about any of this stuff.
If you want to expand on this turtle analogy, we can, because those sea tortoises, what they do is they take a trip all the way up to if they're coming from Costa Rica, those giant, whatever they're called, the gigantic turtles the size of a Volkswagen, they go from Costa Rica all the way up to Alaska every year. And there's different beaches, and they come back to the exact same beaches.
Amazing.
Navigation there's system. No one alpha male turtle going, okay, guys, here's the plan. We're going to go to Alaska. You're going to follow me. There's going to be a lot of trouble on the way. There's some sharks out there. They're going to try to bite your heads off, pull your heads. There's no master plan. It's going on what we would call an instinct. But how can material science explain instinct?
Right. So Prabhupada's explaining it here, according to Bhagavatam, that there's the Paramatma. Right. Now he makes this next point is that we can choose how we wish to be guided. Right. Do we want to be guided towards illusion or towards truth? And that this is the essence of our free will. We think our free will means that every decision I'm making is 100% my own, is a manifestation of my free will. What Prabhupada's saying here is no, the essence of our free will is, do I want to operate in this world according to the dictation of truth? The clear Paramatma coming through? Or do I want to be directed with that being warped by material conditioning and move towards illusion? And based on my conviction of do I want to go take A or B, we're prompted to act, right? And therefore we do so many, we can do so many things that are so, someone asked, it was Ashley Hutton Rodriguez who asked,
Ashley Hutton Rodriguez.
She asked.
Everyone's using 3 names now.
Okay.
I need a third. I need 2 more names.
We can work on that. Puja Daddy, Raghunath Puja Daddy Capo.
What?
That's your name.
Puja Daddy.
So, but in any case, she was asking, why is it that the heart seems so quiet and the mind seems so loud? But it's a really question of, due to our desire, we're choosing a certain type of dictation. Again, just like we've used analogy before, if I have the freedom to drive the car, but once I start making decisions, those begin to limit my freedom. If I decide I want to drive 100 miles an hour, I've limited my freedom to turn quickly or to slow down, on the spot. And so we decide, do I want to be connected to God and live, with that clear direction? Or do I want to separate myself from that and try to take the role of God in this world, try to be the center of adoration, and so on, be perceived that way, try to enjoy that in some way? Then if that's what we want, then that Paramatma is going to direct us in a different way. And then we go about doing all kind of things, even things that are harmful to ourselves, based on that. So he says, at this point in our investigation, we may consider the following question. On the one hand, we realize that all our perceptions and activities are conditioned by arrangements of material nature. Everything that we do, we're dependent, right? Yet we are also ordinarily feel and say, I am perceiving, or I am doing. Therefore, we can say that our material senses of perception and action are moving because we are identifying the self with the material body, and that the superior principle of super self, of Paramatma, is guiding and supplying us according to our desire, right? It's happening according to our desire. By taking advantage of the guidance of the super self in the form of intelligence, we can either continue to study and to put into practice our conclusion that I'm not the body, or we can choose to remain in the false material identification, fancying ourselves to be the possessors and doers. Right? It's very deep stuff. It's taking something, the complexity of life, and boiling it down to a very simple formula. And here is that formula in a nutshell. Our freedom consists in orienting our desire either toward the ignorant material conception or the true spiritual conception. It's as simple as that. And if we have the conviction, I want the spiritual true conception, I want the pure direction of God within the heart, then that will be revealed to us. And if we want something else, if we want that, if we want to be that center of all existence, then we'll be given that. We'll be given the illusion to try to experience that. And so he goes on, he says, we can easily attain to the true spiritual conception by recognizing the super self, Paramatma, to be our friend and guide, and by dovetailing our intelligence with the superior intelligence of Paramatma, rather than bifurcating or separating our intelligence from the pure intelligence. We connect the two, we line them up.
Are devotees the only ones who use the word bifurcate?
No, I think other people use it too.
It's one of those devotee words. You're not going to go bifurcate that bread. Bifurcate that chapati.
Nobody says that.
I say it because if you're not familiar, Prabhupada says it in the Krishna book when he talks about the big crane demon, the Bakasura comes and he bifurcates the mouth. So devotees say bifurcate a lot. Never ever would I ever say bifurcate.
They don't say it a lot. But they say
You just said it.
And I've never said it once before this on this show.
No one in New York City today, I guarantee you, unless they're a devotee, will say the word bifurcate.
But that doesn't mean that I say it a lot.
All the 9 million people that live in the 5 boroughs, no one will say bifurcate.
But that doesn't mean that I say it a lot.
Well, I'm just saying we will say it more than other people.
Okay. That's different. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I say it all the time.
No, you don't.
I do in terms of chapatis, bread, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Bifurcate that in half for your brother.
Okay. All right. We'll give you that. Now, the 9th point that Srila Prabhupada makes in this commentary, that there is clearly a distinction between the self and the super self. One is supplying the other. Okay. One is supplying direction. One is supplying the body. One is supplying the mind. One is supplying the material world that we're moving through.
Such a clear teaching, Kaustubha, huh? That there is a soul, and there is God, and they're hanging out together within your body.
Yes.
That's very clear.
But what's not clear to a lot of people practicing Vedanta is that there's a distinction between the two, and a very clear distinction. Nityo nityanam, chaitanas chaitananam, eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman. It's from the Upanishads. That
This is where yogis get lost all the time.
This is where they get lost. Yeah.
Right.
So let's read what he says. He says the super self and the individual self are both spirits. They're both made out of the same spiritual ingredient, right? And therefore, the super self and the individual self are both qualitatively one. They're one in quality, and they're both distinct from matter, okay? But the super self and the individual self cannot be on an equal level, because the super self gives direction or supplies intelligence, and the individual self follows the direction, and thus actions are performed properly. The individual is completely dependent on the direction of the super self, because in every step, the individual self follows the direction of the super self in the matter of seeing, hearing, thinking, feeling, willing, etc. Right? That little turtle, it's
Yeah.
dependent on the Paramatma in the heart, and not the other way around.
Exactly. Right.
And so we're all those little turtles, and we're moving through the dangerous world where a bird is going to come and pick us off at any moment.
Flipping,
Right.
flapping.
And that comes in the form of all the struggles that we face in life. But we can connect with that Paramatma within and hear that clear direction. But one is providing it to the other. We're not the same.
That final trick of Maya, Kaustubha, is so like, of course you're going to fall into that Maya, because Super Soul is directing. Then these type of yogis, these people who follow Vedantic teachings, oftentimes they fall into this trap. Okay, I'm going to follow these teachings. I'm going to curb my senses. I'm going to follow a yogic path. I'm going to develop a sadhana. And then all of a sudden, you start to feel free. You start to feel, hey, the pain's gone away.
Right,
The pain of I get it. I got to be somewhere between sukha and dukkha, happiness and distress. And then the confusion starts right there. It's like, yep, I've done it. I've become God within this earth. I have become God. And they've taken their own identity, and they're taking all the instructions of God, and then they just flip it around and say, that's because I'm God. And I just wasn't God. I was an illusion. I just had to clear the illusion. Now I understand I'm God. No, it's been God that's always been instructing you within the heart. The Paramatma is always there. You're always going to remain separate, and you can always have this option to be an illusion by your poor choices.
Right. And
So
that's
it's
the last
nice how these
snare.
purports and this whole, truthfully, this whole beautiful parampara and lineage makes that distinction, or else you get caught.
Oh, Raghunath, you're freezing up on us. Right as he's dropping the final message, and now he's gone. But yeah, it's called, the Prabhupada would call it the last snare of Maya. You know, that when we through our practice, that we find some relief from the struggles of material life, and we experience a little of that bliss, of that freedom. Then
Kaustubha, you and me,
yes.
we could just stop. I can, my Chrome can just crash, and you could just pick up where I stopped talking.
That's what I was doing. I was trying. But we call that the last snare of Maya. But you know what it is? We ran out of time. We still haven't finished. We got to finish this tomorrow.
Oh, crap. I didn't have the song ready either.
The professionalism is just blowing my mind today. We're just
well, you know, we got caught up in this great story, this great purport. Okay, Ariana Lynn.
Recovery meeting today at noon. It's a big
recovery meeting at noon today.
It's a big book Bhagavad Gita thing going on.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Zoomers. I woke up very early today, Kaustubha, and got nothing appropriately done.
No.
You know what I mean?
Are you doing?
I woke up like, I just got
Tell me what you're doing.
You know what?
You
I gotta be more. As soon as I wake up, I gotta get my hand in the pee bag.
You went to
you know what? I
social
went
media.
Into yes, that. Yes, and you know the whole colonoscopy thing was on my mind.
So you started investigating, researching, or just thinking about it?
Dangers of colonoscopy. Like, what could go wrong? What could actually go wrong? Once they put anesthesia on, anything could go wrong. Truthfully,
they could do anything to you. You're so vulnerable.
They could do things to me. Thanks everybody for joining us. I should stop talking and just clap.